Funny thing about today, you probably thought it was just another blur, another ordinary stretch of hours slipping through your hands. But somewhere in the middle of all that noise, you did something different. Maybe it was small, maybe it was clumsy, maybe you didn't even notice it yourself. Yet it was enough to tilt the scales, enough to catch the eye of something greater than you, enough to make the universe pause and smirk, like it had been waiting for you to finally move the way you were meant to. And in that single moment, without you even realizing, you made God smile. Small actions can carry unseen weight. That's the trick most people never grasp. They wait for the grand stage, the loud applause, the thunderous moments where the whole world turns its head and notices them. But life doesn't work that way. The universe doesn't keep score the way humans do. Sometimes it's the tiniest gesture, the smallest step, the moment you thought was meaningless, that shifts the balance in ways you'll never fully understand. Think about it. You hold a door open for someone who was 1 second away from giving up on humanity. You say one kind word that silences a storm raging in someone else's head. You take a step forward on a day when your body and mind are screaming to stay down. To you, it feels like nothing. To someone else, to something greater, it might be everything. That's the hidden weight of small actions. They look insignificant on the surface, but they echo deeper than you can see. And the funny part is, you'll almost never know the full impact. You might never see how your smallest decision ricocheted into someone else's life. You might never realize how your stumble forward inspired someone who was watching you in silence. You might never hear the story of how your presence in the right moment rewrote the ending for someone else. But unseen doesn't mean unmeasured. Just because you can't see the ripple doesn't mean it didn't spread. The problem is, we're wired to dismiss the small. We call it weak, ordinary, forgettable. We idolize the big moves, the heroic leaps, the miracles that come with fireworks. But if you strip away the illusions, what you'll find is that all great shifts are built on the little ones. The skyscraper begins with a brick. The storm begins with a breeze. The transformation begins with a whisper of a choice. Small is never small. It only looks that way to impatient eyes. Sometimes the small action is just surviving. Getting up when your bones feel heavy. Smiling when your heart is fractured. Choosing not to quit when quitting feels easier than breathing. And maybe no one claps for that. Maybe no one writes your name in lights for that. But something higher notices. Something greater recognizes the weight. Because the struggle you hide, the battles you fight in silence, are heavier than any loud performance could ever be. There are moments when your smallest action aligns with something beyond yourself. You think it's just a step, just a word, just a breath. But it clicks into place like a puzzle piece the universe had been waiting for. That's when you shift the unseen scales. That's when heaven itself leans in and says, "There, that's it. That's what I wanted to see." It's not the size of the action. It's the timing, the intention, the raw truth behind it that carries the weight. And maybe that's why people miss it. They're too busy chasing the spotlight to realize the real power hides in the shadows. They want to be recognized by the crowd, when the only recognition that matters comes from something far higher. And the irony is, you often make the greatest impact on the days you feel the weakest, the days you think you've failed, the days you don't even notice what you've done. Because you're not supposed to notice. You're supposed to live it, raw and unpolished, without knowing how heavy your step really was. Small actions can carry unseen weight. And sometimes, just sometimes, the smallest thing you did today was enough to tilt the entire universe in your favor. Enough to make the heavens themselves lean back, grin, and whisper that you made God smile. The universe notices what others overlook. People are blind, distracted, wrapped up in their own noise, their own misery, their own little dramas. They don't see you dragging yourself through the day with broken pieces, held together by sheer will. They don't see the battles you fight in silence, the choices you make when no one is around to applaud. They look at the surface, the mask, the carefully rehearsed smile, and they assume that's all there is. But something greater watches differently. It peers beneath the layers, beneath the lies you tell the world, and it notices what everyone else dismisses. It notices the moments you rise from bed when your body feels like lead. It notices when you stay kind in a world that keeps spitting poison. It notices when you forgive, even though the weight of betrayal could have turned you bitter. It notices the cracks in your voice when you tell yourself you're fine, even as your heart bleeds behind your ribs. People may not clap, they may not thank you, they may not even care, but the universe does. And the funny part is, its applause doesn't sound like thunder. It sounds like alignment, like doors opening that you didn't even know existed. The overlooked moments are where the real story is written. Not in the staged victories, not in the polished trophies, not in the fake smiles posted online. The real story is in the way you keep moving when no one believes you can. It's in the way you choose light when darkness seems easier. It's in the way you whisper, "I'll try again," after another brutal fall. These are the scenes most people skip over because they don't sparkle. But the universe pays attention to what doesn't sparkle because that's where the truth lies. And here's the irony. What others overlook is often what matters most. You could win the crowd with a show, but if your soul is rotting, the universe sees that too. You could fool people with confidence, with power, with wealth, but none of it fools the higher eyes that watch beyond the surface. They aren't impressed by the glitter. They're impressed by the grit. By the fact that you kept standing when no one thought you would. By the fact that you chose honesty when lies would have been easier. By the fact that you walked away from comfort to chase something raw and painful but real. The overlooked details are the cracks that reveal your true shape. People may see weakness in them, but the universe sees proof. Proof that you're not pretending. Proof that you're fighting for something invisible. Proof that you are becoming more than what this world told you to settle for. every tear you swallowed, every scream you buried, every silent night where you chose to endure instead of collapse. They're recorded even if no one else will ever know the weight of them. And maybe that's the secret. Maybe you're not supposed to be noticed by the world. Maybe the whole point is that your strength lives in places too small for shallow eyes to appreciate. Maybe the point is that the universe notices because only the universe can truly understand the value of what you've endured. And maybe, just maybe, the reward doesn't come from applause down here, but from recognition above, where nothing is hidden, nothing is wasted, nothing is overlooked. The universe notices what others overlook. It notices you in the cracks, in the pain, in the silence. It notices when you keep choosing to stand. And while the world may pass by blind, something greater has already leaned in and marked you as seen. Significance is often hidden in ordinary moments. People expect the defining points of their lives to come with fireworks, with loud announcements, with the kind of drama you see in movies. But life doesn't play by that script. It hides the turning points in plain sight, wraps them in silence, disguises them as another boring Tuesday you thought would fade into nothing. The cruel joke is, you never realize how important a moment was until you're already living in its aftermath. It could be something as simple as a conversation you almost didn't have, a sentence muttered carelessly, a glance exchanged, a choice to go left instead of right. On the surface, it feels like nothing. You don't pause, you don't mark it in memory, you don't think twice. But weeks later, months later, years later, you'll trace your steps back and see it clearly. That was the moment that shifted everything. That was the hinge the entire door of your life swung on, and you didn't even notice. That's the trap of ordinary moments. They don't scream for attention. They whisper. They slide into your story unnoticed, while you're distracted, while you're complaining about how dull everything feels. You want big, obvious signs. Life prefers to give you subtle ones. And if you're too blind, too arrogant, too busy waiting for fireworks, you miss them. You miss the quiet significance of what's happening right under your nose. Sometimes, the moment is so small you almost laugh at it later. You sent a message you almost deleted. You held the door 1 second longer. You chose to walk outside when everything told you to stay in. Ordinary. Forgettable. Yet from that moment, an entire chain of events unravels. A person enters your life, a decision gets altered, a path opens that you never knew existed. The whole story bends, not because of some grand gesture, but because of something so small you thought it didn't matter. And maybe that's why the ordinary is so dangerous. Because it tricks you into believing it's meaningless. It convinces you that today doesn't matter, that your choices are too small to count, that your actions are too weak to carry weight. But the truth is, every day holds the potential to be the most important day. Every choice carries the seed of a shift that could rewrite everything. Ordinary is only ordinary until you realize what it was hiding. Think about the way you breathe through your routines. Half asleep, half alive. You think nothing significant is happening. But maybe in the middle of that monotony, you're planting something invisible. Maybe today, when you thought no one noticed you, when you thought nothing mattered, was the day something greater was watching closer than ever. Maybe you made a choice in silence that sent ripples far beyond your understanding. The irony is, when people look back at their lives, it's rarely the big staged moments that define them. It's the hidden ones. The time they said yes when everything in them screamed no. The time they chose to endure instead of walk away. The time they reached out and touched another soul without realizing how much it mattered. These are the ordinary moments, the ones disguised as nothing, that end up meaning everything. And here's the cruel twist. You'll rarely recognize them in real time. You'll pass through them blind, dismissing them as just another blur. Only later, when the story has unfolded, will you see the fingerprints of destiny all over them. Only later will you realize the smile, the choice, the step. The second you almost forgot was the second that changed the entire trajectory of your life. Significance is often hidden in ordinary moments. The ones you rush through, the ones you ignore, the ones you treat like background noise. But one day you'll look back and you'll see that the universe doesn't waste moments. It hides power in the smallest places, waiting for you to discover just how much that forgettable second really meant. Divine recognition comes when least expected. People imagine it like a ceremony, like some spotlight shining down from the heavens at the exact moment they've rehearsed in their heads. They think they'll feel it, they'll know it, they'll be prepared for it. But that's not how it works. Recognition doesn't come when you're puffed up, waiting for applause. It slips in during the hours you're not even aware of yourself. When you're tired, when you're broken, when you're doing the right thing simply because it's right, not because someone is watching. That's when the higher gaze settles on you. When the quiet approval you didn't ask for drifts your way. It doesn't arrive wrapped in music or praise. It's subtle, disguised as nothing, the kind of thing you almost ignore. A stranger's gratitude, a chance opening, a shift in the atmosphere you can't quite explain. You don't stand there and think, "Ah, yes, this is it." No, you shrug it off. Joy in higher places reflects your hidden strength. Not the strength you parade around for everyone to see, not the rehearsed smiles or the polished speeches, but the kind that leaks through when you think nobody's paying attention. It's the resilience that comes out when you're crawling through the mud of your own life. It's the decision to get back up when gravity tells you to stay down. And here's the strange part. You don't even realize that these moments of quiet resistance echo upwards. That somewhere beyond your comprehension, joy sparks because you refuse to collapse. Think about it. The world measures strength by noise. Loud victories, trophies, headlines, applause. But what if that's not what counts? What if the real applause is silent, invisible, happening in places you'll never hear? Every time you endured humiliation, but didn't let it define you. Every time you stayed kind when cruelty would have been easier. Every time you carried pain without infecting others with it. You revealed a kind of strength that higher places smile at. Strength that isn't desperate for recognition. Strength that's real, because it exists without an audience. And that's where joy comes in, not yours but theirs. The joy of something greater looking at you, not because you dazzled the world, but because you survived the day without losing yourself. Because you chose integrity when deception would have been simpler. Because you kept your faith alive even when every circumstance tried to kill it. That's strength. Not the kind that screams, but the kind that whispers, the kind that endures, the kind that bends without breaking. That's the kind that radiates upwards. Hidden strength is always born in silence. You don't brag about it. You don't even call it strength. To you, it feels like struggle. It feels like weakness. It feels like dragging your body through another endless hour. But from another perspective, it's proof of something unshakable inside you. Proof that you are more than you think you are. Proof that even in your most fragile moments, there's steel running through your veins. That's what reflects upward, like light slipping through cracks, unnoticed by most, but impossible to hide from eyes that see beyond appearances. The irony is, the world often mocks you for that same strength. They call it stupidity, weakness, naivety. They laugh when you forgive instead of revenge, when you keep loving instead of hating, when you endure instead of quitting. They think you're losing. But above, it's seen differently. That quiet decision, mocked by men, is celebrated in silence elsewhere. Joy erupts because you chose differently, because you proved you're not just another reflection of this broken world, because you showed a strength that doesn't collapse under pressure. And maybe that's why you never feel it. Because if you did, if you could see the joy you've caused beyond your reach, you'd turn it into a performance. You'd fake it. You'd chase it for the reward. That's not how hidden strength works. It has to remain hidden, even from you. It has to feel ordinary, small, thankless. Only then does it remain pure. Only then does it carry the weight to ripple beyond what you can see. So, the next time you drag yourself forward, convinced you're failing, convinced no one sees, remember this strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's invisible, silent, ignored. But it's there, shaping you into something unbreakable. And though you don't see the reaction, joy rises in higher places because of it. Because even when you thought you had nothing left, you still had the one thing that mattered. The will to stand, even when everything told you to fall. Strange, isn't it, how people drift in and out of your life like shadows. Most slip through your fingers without leaving a trace. But then there's that one. The one who isn't just another passing face. The one who feels carved into your very existence. And when everything gets messy, when the world pushes you to let go, to walk away, that's when the real test begins. Because deep down, you know they're not just anyone. They're yours. Not in some possessive sense, not in some fairy tale fantasy, but in the raw, undeniable truth that your story doesn't make sense without them. And the moment you think about giving up, that's exactly when you'll realize why you can't. People come and go like smoke in the wind. Faces blur, names fade. Promises dissolve into nothing. Most of them are temporary, passing through your life like background noise, never really leaving a mark, never really mattering once the moment is gone. You shake their hands, you share a laugh, maybe even some tears, and then one day you look around, and they've vanished, as if they were never there at all. And for a while, you start to believe that's how it always works, that people are meant to drift, that nothing stays. But then, out of nowhere, one person doesn't follow the script. They don't drift. They don't fade. They don't just pass through. They carve themselves into your reality in ways you can't explain. It's not about perfection. It's not about fairy tales. It's not about destiny written in the clouds. No. It's something messier, heavier. It's the way the silence feels different when they're gone. It's the way your thoughts bend toward them, even when you're trying to focus on something else. It's the way their absence feels louder than the presence of anyone else. That's when you realize, this one is different. This one is essential, and the world doesn't make it easy. It will test that bond. It will throw distance, time, doubt, and chaos right between you. It will whisper in your ear, everyone leaves eventually. Let this one go too. But every time you try, every time you think about treating them like the rest, something inside you pulls back. Something refuses. Because letting go of them doesn't feel like moving on. It feels like ripping out a part of yourself you can't grow back. This person isn't essential because they make life easy. They're essential because without them, life feels wrong. Empty. Crooked. Like a puzzle missing the one piece that locks the whole picture together. You can try to deny it, distract yourself, pretend you're fine without them, but deep down, you know they're stitched into the fabric of your existence. And that's what separates them from the drifters. With the others, you don't think twice when they disappear. With this one, every second apart echoes. With the others, memories fade. With this one, memories haunt. With the others, you can replace what was lost. With this one, there is no replacement. You don't want one. You couldn't take one even if you tried. People will call it attachment, obsession, weakness. They'll say you're better off cutting ties, better off finding someone else, better off letting go. They'll say you're holding on too tightly. But here's the truth. This isn't about holding on too tight. This is about recognizing the rare, raw fact that not everyone in your life is meant to be temporary. Most will drift, yes, but not all. Not this one. The reason it hurts so much, the reason it scares you, is because you've been conditioned to believe everything, and everyone is replaceable. You've been taught that people are disposable, that connections are fragile, that the smart move is to never care too much. But when you meet the one who's essential, all of that collapses. You see through the lie. You feel the weight. And you understand why giving up on them isn't an option. The irony is, this person probably wasn't someone you expected. They didn't arrive with fireworks. They didn't walk in wearing a sign saying, "I'm the one." No, they slipped into your life quietly, like the others, and only over time did you notice the difference. Only after they were tangled in your story did you realize your world bent around their presence. And once that realization hits, it's too late to pretend otherwise. Some people drift. They're meant to. But one, just one, becomes essential. Not because life is merciful, not because fate is kind, but because in the middle of all the chaos, you're given proof that not everything is temporary. And that single truth changes everything. Life has a cruel sense of timing. It doesn't test you when everything is calm, when the bond feels unshakable, when you and that person stand side by side without fear. No, it waits until the cracks start to show, until doubts creep in, until the weight between you both feels unbearable. That's when it tightens the screws. That's when it turns up the heat. Because life knows the real measure of any connection isn't how you act when it's easy. It's how you fight when it's slipping away. Think about it. Anyone can smile. Anyone can stay when everything is smooth. But when the storms roll in, when words turn sharp, when silence stretches longer than it should, that's when the test begins. That's when you're forced to decide whether this person is just another passing shadow or someone worth every ounce of your strength to hold on to. And the test isn't gentle. It throws misunderstandings in your face. It twists trust into suspicion. It floods your mind with thoughts of walking away. You'll notice the timing. It's always right when you're closest to losing them. As if life is daring you to let them go, daring you to prove how much they matter. It's almost mocking. If they mean that much, show me. If they're worth it, prove it. If they're essential, then bleed for it. That's the way life works. It doesn't hand out lasting bonds for free. It makes you earn them through fire. And here's the twisted part. You'll want to quit. You'll feel tired, exhausted from the fights, drained from the weight of carrying something so fragile. You'll convince yourself it would be easier to just release them, to stop trying, to let the bond die quietly. But that's the trap. Because walking away is always easier than holding on. Surrender feels lighter than struggle. Yet, it's in that moment, when quitting seems like the sane option, that life is asking you the only question that matters. Do you mean it? The test isn't about the other person as much as it is about you. It's about whether you have the courage to fight for what matters when everything is screaming at you to stop. It's about whether you can push past the pride, the anger, the frustration, and still see the truth buried underneath. That this person is yours. That letting them go isn't just losing them. It's losing a part of yourself you can't get back. And life doesn't just test once. No, it repeats. Over and over, until you understand. Every challenge, every argument, every moment you stand on the edge of breaking. It's all part of the same brutal lesson. Because when you come out on the other side, if you choose to hold on, the bond becomes something unshakable. Scarred, yes. Weathered, yes. but stronger than anything the world can throw against it. People often mistake trials as signs they should give up. They say, if it's this hard, maybe it isn't meant to be. But that's the lie life feeds you to see if you'll bite. The truth is the opposite. If it's being tested this hard, maybe it's because it is meant to be. Maybe it's because life only tests the bonds that matter, the ones worth breaking, the ones worth proving, the disposable ones. Those don't get tested. They just dissolve. So when life drags you to the breaking point, when you feel like you're about to lose them, remember, that's not the end. That's the exam. That's the moment life waits for, the moment that separates the ones who drift from the ones who stay. It's not meant to be easy. It's not meant to be painless. It's meant to push you to your limits, so that when you choose to hold on, you know it's real. Life tests you most when you're close to losing them, not to destroy you, but to see if you have the courage to prove they're worth the fight. Because if they are, then every bruise, every scar, every sleepless night becomes evidence that you didn't let the one thing that mattered most slip through your fingers. Walking away feels easier than holding on. That's the first trick life plays on you, the sweet illusion of escape. When the weight grows heavy, when the nights turn long, when the silence between two people feels like a knife, walking away calls to you like a siren's song. It whispers promises of freedom, of peace, of release from the chaos. And for a moment you believe it. You believe that leaving is strength, that turning your back is clarity, that cutting ties will save you from drowning. But here's the lie. Walking away doesn't make the storm disappear. It only leaves you stranded with the wreckage inside your chest. You tell yourself it's easier, but easier doesn't mean better. Easier doesn't mean right. Walking away doesn't erase the bond. It doesn't silence the echoes of what they mean to you. It just buries them under layers of regret, waiting to claw their way back when you least expect it. Holding on, though, that's the hard part. That's the brutal, bloody fight no one prepares you for. It's the choice to face the storm head-on, to wrestle with the pain, to claw your way through the dark instead of pretending it isn't there. Holding on means swallowing pride, enduring doubt, tearing through every excuse life feeds you. It means refusing to let go, even when everything in you aches to stop. And that's why walking away feels so tempting. Because surrender is simple. All it takes is one decision, one moment of weakness, and you can convince yourself the weight is gone. But holding on, that's thousands of decisions made in silence. That's waking up every day and choosing again, even when it hurts, even when it feels pointless, even when no one applauds you for it. Holding on is endurance. And endurance doesn't give you quick relief. It breaks you down before it builds you up. The world will cheer for you if you walk away. They'll say you were brave enough to cut the cord, wise enough to move forward, strong enough to protect yourself. But deep down, you'll know you didn't leave because you were strong. You left because it was easy. You left because the struggle scared you more than the emptiness that followed. Walking away makes sense with most people, because most people are meant to drift. Their chapter ends, their story closes, and you're free to move on. But not with the one who's yours. Not with the one who's essential. With them, walking away isn't closure. It's self-destruction disguised as freedom. You may leave their side, but you'll never escape what they mean to you. You'll carry it like a phantom limb, always missing, always aching, always reminding you of what you lost because you chose easy over true. And make no mistake, holding on will break you too. It will scrape your knees, shred your patience, and make you doubt your own sanity. But that's where its value lies. Because nothing worth keeping ever comes without blood. Nothing unshakable is built in comfort. The fire of holding on burns away the illusions, the lies, the shallow reasons. What's left when you've endured the pain is something real, something indestructible. Walking away is the path of least resistance. Holding on is the war against gravity itself. One lets you collapse. The other forces you to rise. And the world is full of people who chose collapse, who wear smiles while secretly drowning in regret. Very few fight the harder battle. Very few choose to bleed instead of surrender. And that's the difference. Walking away may give you peace in the moment, but it robs you of the story you were meant to live. Holding on may tear you apart in the process, but it gives you the chance to prove that some bonds are worth every scar. Walking away feels easier, yes, but sometimes the easy road leads straight into a life of emptiness, while the harder one drags you toward something unbreakable. Connection is proven in struggle, not comfort. Anyone can stand beside you when the sun is warm, when the table is full, when laughter comes easy. Anyone can play the role of a friend, a lover, a partner, when nothing is being tested. But comfort is cheap. Comfort is the stage where masks stay on, where people smile because the world allows them to. It tells you nothing about who they really are. Struggle. That's where the truth shows its teeth. Struggle strips away the polished faces and polite words. It exposes the cracks, the fears, the raw, unfiltered humanity no one wants to admit they carry. When everything collapses, when life burns down the walls, when all that's left is ash and silence, that's when you find out who they are. More importantly, that's when you find out what you mean to them. If someone is only with you during the easy hours, they're not with you at all. They're with the idea of you, the performance of you, the version of you that the world accepts. But when the comfort dies, when your flaws surface, when your darkness spills into the open, that's when the bond is tested. Do they run? Do they flinch? Do they disappear like smoke? Or do they stay bruised and bleeding, but unwilling to let go? That's the difference. Struggle turns pretense into proof. It shows you whether the connection is paper, thin, or made of steel. And it's never a graceful revelation. It's messy, painful, humiliating. You see sides of yourself you'd rather bury, and you see sides of them that shake you to your core. And yet, if the bond holds through that chaos, if it bends but doesn't break, then you've found something that comfort could never reveal. Most people don't want this test. They want the illusion of loyalty without the cost of it. They want the feeling of connection without the burden of sacrifice. That's why so many bonds shatter the moment struggle arrives, because they were never built for fire. They were built for convenience. And convenience is fragile. But the few who stay, the few who fight through the storm, the few who choose the hard path instead of escape, they prove themselves in a way words never could. They don't have to promise they'll be there. They don't have to swear eternal loyalty. They show it in the blood, in the scars, in the way they choose you when every reason says to walk away. And here's the cruel beauty of it. You can't know who those people are until the struggle comes. You can't predict it. You can't plan it. You can't buy it. It has to be lived. You have to feel the sting of betrayal, the weight of failure, the collapse of comfort, to see who stands with you in the rubble. And once you see it, once you've lived it, you'll never look at them the same way again. Connection isn't defined by the smiles in the photographs, the laughter over drinks, or the happy moments people parade to the world. Those are the surface layers, the easy lies. The real definition is in the late nights, when you're both exhausted, when anger cuts deep, when hope feels like it's dying, and yet you choose each other anyway. That's not decoration. That's foundation. Struggle doesn't weaken a true connection. It reveals its strength. It burns away the false bonds, the shallow attachments, the fragile illusions, leaving only the ones forged in fire. And if you've ever found one that survived the flames, you already know it's worth more than every comfortable moment combined. Because comfort may make life pleasant, but struggle makes the bond unbreakable. Your story bends around their presence. You don't notice it at first. Life feels like it's moving along on its usual crooked path. Each choice, each mistake, each victory carving out the shape of who you are. Then someone enters, quietly, almost casually, and without warning the entire story begins to twist. You try to tell yourself nothing's changed, that you're still in control, that you're still the author of your own life. But the truth creeps in slowly. You can't tell your story anymore without them in it. It's not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's the smallest moments that reveal it. The way your thoughts shift when making decisions. How their voice echoes in the back of your mind, even when they're not around. How their absence feels like a missing chapter you can't skip over. That's when you start to realize the gravity of it. They're not just part of your life. They've become part of the structure, holding it together. Every story bends to someone. Most of the time, it bends toward pain, or ambition, or survival. But when it bends toward a person, everything takes a different shape. Your choices, your sacrifices, even your mistakes, they all begin to orbit around that presence. And whether you want to admit it or not, your life is no longer just yours. It's entangled with theirs. This isn't weakness, though people will call it that. They'll say you're too attached, too dependent, too lost in someone else. But they don't understand. When a person is truly yours, when they become essential. Your story bending around them isn't a loss of self. It's the deepest confirmation of who you are. Because only someone that vital has the power to shift your path so completely. And it isn't always pleasant. Sometimes the story bends in painful ways. Sometimes being tied to them means enduring storms you would have avoided alone. Sometimes it means carrying scars you never asked for, wounds you never wanted. But even through the pain, you can't rewrite them out of your story. They're in too deep. They've shaped too much. Without them, the narrative collapses into something unrecognizable. You may even try to fight it. You may try to convince yourself you can take back control, that you can straighten the path, that you can erase their influence. You'll try to leave, to pretend, to bury the weight of their presence. But no matter how far you run, the story drags you back to them. Not because you're weak, not because you're trapped, but because some stories aren't meant to be told without the characters that define them. And deep down, you know it. That's why every attempt to cut them out feels hollow. That's why every time you try to forget, something inside burns with the reminder that they're not just another person. They're a cornerstone. They are the reason the story holds any shape at all. It's easy to underestimate the power of presence. You think you're living your own life, that every choice is yours alone. But when someone essential steps into your world, their presence becomes a gravity you can't resist. It pulls at your decisions, your dreams, your fears, bending everything toward them. That force isn't an accident. It's the mark of something real. Most people never experience this. Their stories bend toward temporary figures, shallow attachments, fleeting desires. And when those people drift away, the story straightens itself out. But when it's the right one, the essential one, the story never straightens again. It can't. Their presence has already rewritten the lines, already carved themselves into the narrative. Your story doesn't bend like this for everyone. It bends for the one who was meant to matter, the one whose presence reshapes not just your choices, but your very identity. And when you finally admit that truth, when you see how much of your path has been shaped around them, you understand why letting go would feel like erasing your own existence.